Well, there we go. What did we do? Well, during the summer of 2012, we added online tutoring to the tutorial services offered through the Mathematics Help Center. Before I go any further, let me further describe who we are. Of course, I was a central part of it, but perhaps most important, I want to introduce you to Melissa Lavallee. Melissa, will you stand up, please? Melissa is a temporary instructor at present, a temporary instructor in our department. She was between contracts at the time, and I hired her as a consultant for the project, and she really was the creative engine behind the project. Thank you, Melissa. So that's what we did. How did we do it? Well, I do want to speak to these four aspects. Certainly the first two bullets address what support we got. The third bullet addresses what tool we used, and then the fourth bullet addresses the other parties involved. So there was lots of help for people in ed tech, and yet three names stand out: Jacqueline Bradshaw, Sarah, excuse me, I misspelled your name. That should be an H at the end of that. Sarah Bowers and Serenia Tam all were very, very helpful. And beside Jacqueline's, look what we have. That's when Melissa and I were researching this project. Well, let me back up and say that Melissa had experience using MSN texting for online tutoring, and as you can imagine, it's not very efficient. As part of our research, we did come across a product called iWonk that introduced us to using a pad for a tutorial service. But then our coaching from Jacqueline introduced us to Adobe Connect, which was all iWonk had, and then some. It's a wonderful multimedia tool. I'll speak to that shortly. And what is important, I guess, for our perspectives is that it doesn't cost us anything because we have access to it through BC Campus. And Sarah said, here's what we did with the Writing Center. Well, she certainly helped me with rewrite the proposal, which had not been successful the year prior. And she also displayed to me how they used the features of Adobe Connect for their work, their tutorial work in the Writing Center. And Serenia Tam shared with us the peer tutoring guide that she used for her library tech programs. These three individuals helped us considerably. There was a little bit of money, of course, that's what the funds are about, but you know, this wasn't a very expensive project at all. In fact, equipment was all of $250, a couple of headsets and a couple of writing pads, and then there was money that went into the salaries for the tutors and for the consultant. So, the Adobe Connect, what are the features? This is a system that has, as the notes suggest, a multimedia capacity. So you can text, there's audio interface, there's a whiteboard interface, there's a screen and file share interface. And these are all really helpful, especially with tutoring mathematics, because of course it's such a highly symbolic discipline, and between writing the special symbols and offering diagrams for help, the whiteboard feature, the writing pad, was invaluable in this regard. The system operates on what's called a pod structure, and my note says that it allows for recreating the protocols of the Math Help Center. Let me speak briefly to what happens in person. Students go up to our tutorial center and they sign in and take a seat, and then when they have a question, they go up and get one-on-one attention from a tutor. If the tutor is busy, they sign up on a question, on a help waiting list. The pods, and then the tutorial work that they get is confidential, of course. And the pods helped us with that. So there's a sign-in pod so that that everybody sees, and so the students know how long they'll have to wait for help. There's then a question and answer pod that only the tutor sees, so that the students can feel safe about asking their question. And on occasion, the tutor can say, oh, I see two students with the same question. Maybe I'll ask them if we can see them together. And then there is the tutorial pod, or what Adobe calls a breakout room. And that's where the tutor and the student or students get together and have their tutorial exchange. Next. Our tutors. They, of course, were an invaluable part of this project. They were recent Langara grads, and as such, they were kind of expensive, given what we usually use. We couldn't use swap students. They, as I say, they had a measure of technology geekiness, and that was kind of good. They were prepared to try some things. And so, for example, one of them found it very, very useful to use an overlay on top of the writing pad so that he could write in straight lines. Another one made a grid that he would put on top of the pad so that he could draw graphs accurately. So they showed that kind of initiative. Ultimately, they were available 4 hours a night, Sundays through Wednesdays, in preparation for students' courses Mondays through Thursdays. No courses on Fridays. And in addition to their tutoring, they reported to me weekly, and so I just kept track of what was going on. And ultimately, what did we learn? Well, certainly we learned that Adobe Connect is a wonderful resource to most clearly recreate an in-person tutorial experience. Also, we learned that it was really quite easy to train the tutors. It's an easy system to operate, and as I say, they quite got into it. The third bullet is a little bit of a challenge. It was a bit of a challenge to encourage students to use this service. Generally, the tutors were busy only about a quarter of the time that they were available. And this was despite extensive in-person selling at the beginning of the project, and despite broadcasts from communications and marketing whenever we changed hours. Nonetheless, it wasn't used that well. Another issue to address is maintaining an appropriate audience. Some of these tutors enjoyed the work so much, or some of the students enjoyed the work so much that they advertise it to their pals at UBC. So anyway, that's it. Thanks. Thanks.